This is shaming. She is going to study, or at least she pretends to. When she gets to her study desk, she opens up her textbook for 2 minutes before reaching for her phone. Only 1 minute, she says. Then 1 minute turns to an hour, turns to 3 hours, until she finally realizes she wasted her entire study session. But she has a test tomorrow. What will she do? She decides she will just cram as much as possible from the textbook. Does she understand? Not at all, but she passes the test. The next study session, she gets stressed, procrastinates, crams, gets stressed again, and the cycle continues. Will she ever learn her lesson?
If that was literally your last study session, then you need to keep watching. You see, most of us have been told that the reason why we struggle to study and get the grades that we desire is due to procrastination, laziness, indiscipline, and all of this. So we try to fix it the most obvious way. We put the phone away, sit to our books, and just try our best to focus. But here is the thing. Discipline means nothing if you are overwhelmed and frustrated every single time that you try to open your textbook. So the cycle continues. You get stressed, you cram, you pass the exam, you get stressed again, rinse and repeat. Now, I am not here to teach you how to stop procrastinating because there are a million videos on that. I am actually here to cut it at its roots so that you can face any difficult subject head on in just 3 steps. But before we get into it, I just want you to know that I was in that exact same cycle, okay? I've always been an essay kind of subject girl, okay? Government, literature, CRS, English, those are the subjects that I love the most. Anything that involves just reading, writing, and analyzing information, that is where I'm at. But as an art student in secondary school, I still had to obviously face subjects like mathematics, further maths, economics, the calculation side, and biology. You see, let me tell you a little bit about biology. When I first started biology, it was just so confusing to me, okay? Because it was one of those subjects where there are a lot of notes, but you don't understand anything. Because normally I love notes, but it felt like when I would read my textbook or I would open my notes, it was like I was just reading a completely different language. There were so many different terminologies and concepts and processes that I just couldn't understand. So I couldn't just read my way through like other subjects. So obviously I just crammed like every other student, and my first term results definitely showed it. It definitely showed it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good enough. But something shifted when I stopped trying to read biology like every other student, and I started to actually study it like the kind of student that I was, an art student. Instead of treating every topic and process like an isolated fact to memorize, I decided to create connections between different topics and also to find the story inside the science. And just like that, biology went from being one of my most frustrating subjects to being one of my favorite subjects till today, and I even graduated as second best in it. The problem wasn't the subject, the problem wasn't biology. The problem was that nobody told me that I was allowed to meet these hard subjects on my own terms. And that is exactly what we are fixing today. I want you to close your eyes and just picture what your ideal notes look like. Does it look something like this or like this? If yes, then we just found our first problem. Now those are what we call linear notes. Headings, paragraphs, and the occasional highlighters to make it look as if you are doing something. The issue isn't that the notes are pretty. The issue is that linear notes force you into linear thinking and reading, which is one of the slowest ways to learn anything. Here is why. Your brain isn't a filing cabinet, okay? It is a web. When you read a paragraph and you are unable to connect to a bigger picture or to connect to something that you already know, your brain quietly marks that information as unimportant. That is why the next morning after cramming and studying, you can't seem to remember anything. Now, this isn't actually your fault because schools have taught us to take notes that way. Textbooks are written that way because of how they are printed. But we are changing that today. So the solution is just the opposite, non-linear note taking, or also known as mind mapping. But before I explain that, I want you to understand one thing. The point of taking notes while studying isn't to have the notes. I know, it's a little bit surprising, a little bit shocking. It might have even stung a little bit. But once you understand that, it takes a lot of pressure off having this really beautiful color-coded, perfectly organized notes, and you start to focus more on genuinely understanding. Because the point of taking notes while studying is to help you think, and thinking is messy. So perfect notes are sometimes just procrastination with better handwriting. So here is what non-linear notes taking actually looks like in practice. As you study, just put down a few keywords. I repeat, not full sentences, definitely not paragraphs, just concepts and a few keywords here and there. And just try to draw as many connections as possible between them. And studies actually show that when you write less words, it helps you to make information stick better because you are forcing yourself to summarize and shorten the information whilst you getting across the general message. So less is genuinely more here. And don't worry about being correct. You don't have to be correct. You can always make changes later. The point is just for you to get down your thoughts on paper. Once you are done, you'll notice something very strange. You'll remember a lot more more than you expected, not because you read anything, because you spent more time thinking about the web than just staring at it. But a few things to keep in mind while you do this: use arrows, diagrams, symbols, basically anything except full sentences. If you don't understand something well enough to connect it, sit with that discomfort instead of writing down the terminology and moving on. Think about how concepts may differ, not just how they are similar, and look for the places where ideas cross over. At first, it will feel very weird. That is normal. You realize that you're engaging more with the material instead of just trying to memorize and survive it, basically. That is exactly when things shifted for me in biology, and I even recently recommended it in a study audit that I did for Precious and SS3 students who said that biggest problem was procrastination. But when I looked closer, I realized that procrastination wasn't the main issue, just the result of an even bigger issue, which was the disconnect between her favorite subjects like government and civic education with these more bulky, a little bit more overwhelming subjects like mathematics and English, economics, and so much more. She felt stuck every time that she tried to study. That's why she always ended up reaching for her phone and procrastinating. And I feel like we've all been in that situation. Mind mapping was one of the first things that I suggested to her so that she can stop reaching for her phone every time that she hit a wall and start seeing the bigger picture. So if you want your own custom study audits, I'm actually running a free beta test. Yeah, I'm going to be doing it for free for about a week, but after that I'm going to be closing it and make a paid service. So check the link in the description and join the beta tests. So now you understand the material, you've built the web, and you feel good about yourself. But then you enter the examination hall, and then it feels like the questions are just written in a completely different language, or you just feel like all your studying has gone to waste. Here is what is actually happening. So basically, there's an educational model called Bloom's taxonomy of learning. I'm not going to go too deep into it because that's going to be reserved for the last video of this month, which is going to be like a full-on masterclass. So make sure you subscribe. But basically, there are different levels of learning. We have lower levels of learning and higher levels of learning. At the lower base, we have remembering, understanding, and applying. Then at the upper parts, we have analyzing, evaluation, and creation. Okay, so the issue is that most students study at the lower level, but examination questions require you to engage in higher order thinking. So for example, you can prepare for what is the legislature, what is the judiciary, what is this. Then in the examination, they could ask you, how does the judiciary, legislature, and executive all overlap, and compare and contrast, and all of these different questions. And then you start thinking that this is not what I studied for, I didn't see this in the textbook. That's because you were aiming to just simply understand and remember, but the people who are setting the exam questions expect you to be able to evaluate the information. They expect you to be able to make critical analysis. They expect you to be able to even maybe write essays and recreate that information, to apply the information in different scenarios. So here's the good news: you don't have to slowly climb every single level to get there. You can actually just skip straight to the top. When you do that, those lower levels come automatically. If you can justify what you studied, you already understand it. If you understand it, then you remember it. So the higher levels cover everything below them. So how do you engage in this high level learning? Two methods, and they are actually a mirror of each other. One, we have the Feynman technique. I discussed this in my tier ranking video. So the Feynman technique is just where you pretend as if you are teaching a subject to somebody else. After you study a textbook, after you read a particular paragraph, try to just say it in your own words without using any complex terms. You just explain the core of the concept using plain language in such a way that even a 5-year-old would understand it. Because once you are able to simplify information as much as possible, it is such a huge indicator that you truly understand what you are studying. You can do this out loud. You can record a voice note for you to play back later. You can even teach it to a classmate. Like, I personally really loved teaching government-related topics and literature stuff to my classmates when I was in secondary school. And the second technique is called blurting, but with a twist. Now, blurting was a study technique that was popularized by one of my favorite study creators, Unjaded Jade. So you read a paragraph in your textbook, you read like a module, and then you just write down everything that you remember about it and you try to fill in the gaps. But here is the twist: instead of just rewriting the information like most people would do, actually write it as if you are writing an essay or like a journal entry of some sort. So you give your own opinions, you try to justify it, you try to see different perspectives, you try to just write down your different thoughts. Just make sure that you are engaging with the material as much as possible instead of just rewriting everything. It is just the Feynman technique but in written form, and I personally really love that because I'm more of a writer than a speaker. So for me, writing essays has played a very big role in making me understand a lot of the topics that I have to cover. For example, in literature, I wrote so many essays that if you were to wake me up at 2 a.m. and just ask me to explain what metaphors are and also give textual evidence, I would be able to tell you because I just wrote so many. Well, please don't do that. I really love my sleep, okay? But before we get into the last step, which is honestly a game changer, we need to talk about something. Now, I've noticed that a lot of students watch my videos and they understand the concept, they understand the strategies, but then life happens, but implementation never happens, which is why alongside this video, I'm currently creating a digital toolkit to help you actually implement what you learn from all the videos this study hall season. Printable sheets, exercises, AI prompts, mini podcasts from moi, with my own voice to motivate you and all of that. Everything's going to be dropping on the first Saturday of April, which is when my free masterclass is going to be taking place. So if you do not want to miss it, make sure to subscribe and join the waitlist. Link is in the description below, okay? Now, for the strategies that is going to change absolutely everything, it's called pre-testing. If you haven't seen my study technique ranking video, you should definitely go check it out. But if you have, then you know that I love pre-testing. Like, I was talking about pre-testing so much because I just love it so much. Pre-testing is just what the name implies. Before you study, before you learn about a topic, you take a test on that topic. So this can involve you taking like a quiz online, or you generating your own questions using AI, just so that you can kind of measure your understanding of the subject before you even start reading about it. It is just one small action that you can take before you even open your textbook, and it can completely transform your study session. Just answer the questions as best as you can. For example, if you are preparing for an external exam, before you start mapping out your whole study strategy, just take like a few minutes to do a little mock test, and don't pressure yourself to get everything right the first time, because that is not the point. So I know that you might be thinking that, Shemi, what's the point of all of this? Why can't I just go straight into studying? Well, here's what actually happens when you pre-test yourself before studying. Firstly, it makes connections so much easier while you study. Because you were already pulling from what you know, your brain is primed and is ready to attach new information to existing hooks. Secondly, it activates something called the hypercorrection effect, which means that you are more likely to remember information that you got wrong confidently than information that you just read and you moved on from. So getting some questions wrong on purpose before you even study is one of the best things that you can do for your memory. Third, it makes your study sessions so much shorter, because now you know what needs your attention and what doesn't. And if a full pretest feels like too much pressure or work for you, you can opt for like a mind map instead. Before you open the chapter, just make a quick sketch of what you think you already know about the topic. Make connections, make guesses, just make sure that you let your brain engage before the textbook does. The method doesn't matter as much as the guiding principle. Analyze before you absorb. Average students study as much as possible. Excellent students, however, study strategically. When you implement these 3 steps, those subjects that used to make your brain shut off completely, they become manageable, workable, and sometimes even interesting. So you've learned how to think in words and not just paragraphs and lines. You've learned how to study effectively using higher levels of thinking instead of just seeking to understand information. And most importantly, you've learned how to study strategically through pre-testing, so that you make every single session count. Let me know which of these strategies you are most excited to try out. Drop in the comments below, and just know that I'll be reading every single one. I always read the comments if you drop one. If you are new here, hi, my name is Shemi and this is Shemi's Digital Locker. I'm building the #1 digital hub for the young and ambitious. Whether you want to become an academic weapon, build insane self-confidence, organize your life, or just like make money as a teenager, you are in the right place. I want to give you the high-level tools, resources, and of course community support to help you move from aspiring to actually achieving your goals without breaking the bank. So if this sounds like somewhere you need to be, make sure to subscribe and also leave a like so that you never miss out on future videos. And also make sure to get on the waitlist for the April masterclass so that you'll be the first one to get the discount on the digital toolkit drop that's going to be dropping this April to help you actually implement what you're going to learn from these videos. In the description, you just have to fill out the form and then I do the rest for you. The link is going to be in the description before it becomes a paid service by the end of this month. Now next week, we are going to be building the ultimate study workflow using AI to help you master any topic and subject from scratch. I'm telling you, you do not want to miss that video. But in the meantime, now that you have the strategies, you need to make sure that you also have the mindset to back it up. Click the video on the screen. Is the last study hall episode and it covers exactly what you need to do to build the right academic mindset to make all of this work. Okay, class dismissed.